Okay, everyone, and welcome to Next Big Future. I have my friend Randy here with me. We're going to be talking about nuclear energy, nuclear fission, nuclear fusion. Um, I know a lot about it, and there've been a lot of news that came out this week. DOE talked about getting a bunch of pilot reactors going in 2026, getting rid of regulations. So I have a little deck that's going to go over that, and then Randy will cut in as we discuss it. So, so there's a nuclear energy race. Why the nuclear energy race? It's because of AI data centers. AI data centers will need 150 gigawatts or so every year by 2030. There's going to be a gap of about 100 gigawatts by 2028. We're building natural gas as fast as we can, but there's 4 to 7 year delays ordering natural gas turbines. So you won't be able to break ground on starting your natural gas thing for that time. And then there's a lot of pressure to add new natural gas, a bunch of mines and other things. So all kinds of problem with that. This picture is the old regular nuclear reactors. It's, I think, a picture of 3 Mile Island. So people know 3 Mile Island for the meltdown. There was more than one reactor there. A second reactor got shut down a few years ago, and Microsoft paying Constellation Energy to restart that reactor because they want more power for AI data centers. So AI data center, trillions of dollars to go into that. Like every year, $400 billion now. It's going to keep going up and up as everyone needs that. Um, we're starting another reactor too, Palisades reactor. So that's another reactor they're restarting, and they're going to put what they're called small modular reactors, two more of those there. So we're going to get into that, and I know all about what they're doing in China, globally. I used to run the um, Carnival Nuclear Energy for about 10 years, running every week about nuclear fission and nuclear fusion. Okay, so the DOE, Department of Energy, said they have 11 companies that are going to make new reactors in 2026, right? So what does that mean? It means criticality for three of these reactors. Criticality means that they will get it so that the fission products will start being made. It'll get to the point where it's generating some amount of power. But they did not say commercial nuclear power plants. They did not
So
say
Brian,
commercial.
so
Yeah.
Brian, help me out here.
Mhm.
This is if I understood it this the other day correctly, this is a Trump administration initiative
Right.
that has thrown out the gauntlet and said,
Mhm.
you guys are all on the verge. You're all in at some point along the way
Mhm.
in developing level 4 reactors and or SMRs, both some one and some the other. Is that how it works?
So you don't have to go. So there's generation three, generation four reactors, right? Generation three reactors are the reactors that have been made for the last few decades. France made a lot of generation three reactors, regular pressure water, pressure water reactors, right? PWRs. And then there's generation four. So for several decades, when not much was happening in terms of the new nuclear build, they were thinking we should make something even safer than they were before. Although I've gone over this in terms of like death per terawatt hour, nuclear fission, the generation three reactors, are among the safest forms of energy that we can ever make. Okay. So they're like 100 times safer than coal and natural gas. But then you say, but Brian, there have been all of these big accidents with nuclear fission power. There was 3 Mile Island, there was Chernobyl, there was Fukushima. One thing you notice is that we've had this power for about 60, 70 years. And you can name the three accidents that we've had, right? You can name them, right? Can you name all of the coal accidents we have? No, you can't because there's been too many. Too many oil and gas. Oil and gas have, oil, you have a tanker truck moving stuff around in, say, Africa, and then it spills out onto the highway in Africa, and then a bunch of people try and scoop up the oil lying around the road, and then it ignites, and then 200 people die. You don't hear about that. You don't hear about, and then there's the air pollution from the coal and the natural gas, killing, you know, from, you know, air pollution, hospitalization death, 2 million people a year. World War I levels of death, right? And also the clean air days. Why do they have clean air days? Because hospitalization rates go up with asthma when you have these problems. So it's like directly connected to stuff. And then there's the mining accidents around that. And they've cut down on mining accidents, which was killing about 10,000 people a year.
Wow.
And then they cut down on that. How they do that? They did that with mountaintop removal.
Hmm.
So mountaintop removal things, I take 2,000 tons of regular explosives, which looks like a seismic nuclear event, and I blow off the top of the mountain. So then all the trees, all of the animals don't do too well when you blow them up, right? And then what happens is all of that top of the mountain and the trees get pulverized, and then it flows down to the bottom of the valley, and then you have to have a dam to hold it, right? It's a bunch of sludge lying there. There's these sludge ponds, about 1,000 of them in Brazil, all over the United States. You just
Hmm.
don't look at them, right?
Hmm.
There was an accident, I believe, in the 1990s called the Buffalo Creek dam break. That was a coal dam break that broke, and then it killed like 128 people
Hmm.
because basically you have a tsunami of sludge,
Sure.
you know, 14 feet high that goes over, washes over a coal town and kills them all. There's also in the Crown, which was a story about Queen Elizabeth and talking about the Ashfordsham, or I can't remember the pronunciation of it, coal tips. So they were piling up the waste coal stuff into coal tips, like big tall things. They fell over and they killed, landed onto an elementary school.
Hmm.
And the coal miners went and tried to dig out their children, all that kind of stuff. Again, a horrible accident. If this had been nuclear, it'd been like, oh my God, you killed a school full of children, right? And then here it's kind of like, I did not know that happened until I saw The Crown. It's like, I
Yes.
knew about it. So anyway,
So
so
so basically, nuclear needs a public relations department.
right, I've been trying
No,
to do
but
that
can
for
we
them. Yeah,
now? Okay,
yeah.
and that's
Anyway,
phenomenal. Can we
and then
come
you can
back?
even make it more safer. Anyway, so going back to the energy part, right?
So
So
it's so would some of these companies be making Gen 3, some be making Gen 4, and some be making small nuclear reactors, or
they're
would
all
all
pretty much going to be going to either Gen 4 or a
SMRs?
smaller, more efficient version of some kind of Gen 3 reactor.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Or a fast reactor. So fast
And
reactors aren't considered Gen 4 per, per se, but they fast reactor, slow reactor. Fast reactor means that the neutrons that split off are going about 10 times faster, which means 100 times more energy. So when they hit the nucleus, they can split stuff. So that
that's
means you can split even numbered isotopes. So normally you have uranium-235,
uh-huh.
right? So that's the one that's odd number, easier to split. And then you can end up with a bunch of 238, which is, the enrichment part. I want more odd number versus the even number.
Right.
238 is the even number. So a fast reactor can split the 238, which is the predominant form of uranium.
Okay, and so I was a little confused when I read the article.
Hmm.
These 12, 11,
11.
12 companies, they have been challenged with coming up with some kind of production of energy.
Right.
You're saying not commercial necessarily, but safe nuclear capability that could become commercialized. Is that the idea?
The safety factor is not particularly an
I see.
actual feature that they have. It will become part of it,
Okay.
but obviously they would want something as safe as possible. I'm thinking redesign something. I will make it safer, right? So but it's not a requirement. The only
Okay.
requirement is that by 2026, and the thing is, it doesn't be a firm requirement because they say of these 11, we want at least three
Right.
to have criticality.
Right.
So that means the others, eight of them don't, right?
Right.
The goal is to get three, and they
Right.
seem to want them to really work as hard as possible
Between
to
now and
get
then.
that. And then they would assign someone from the DOE to clear out the regulatory and other problems.
Right.
So they'll get special treatment from the DOE
Right.
to move as fast as possible. And there
Okay.
was a bunch of executive orders trying to remove the regulatory things that were slowing things down because there was a bunch of regulations that were slowing things down. So they're basically saying, yes, we will sign up for this. We still have to raise the money to do
Right.
it. We still have to do all the work. We're just getting, there won't be any regulatory thing holding us up.
Right.
And it's also probably like someone like anyone who's done any business or residential work where you had to remodel your home, you know, you can get all kinds of delays, like submitting your
Sure.
plans, doing
Yeah.
stuff. So they have a bunch of, that expert. This person, their DA person will run their plan through wherever to get it checked off, make sure it all moves smoothly. So
Got it.
someone constantly pushing to make it move faster.
Okay.
Right. So then we can go over these
Now,
companies.
now, in previous times when you and I have discussed it, you said that there were a couple of these SMRs that might have been ready by 2028 anyway. Is that correct?
Right. Well, their stated
Goal.
goal is to get
Goals.
there by 2020. I'll review
Okay.
some of those later on. But a bunch of them have said, yes, we want to get a actual working commercial reactor
Right.
going by 2028. Right.
Okay.
They have a goal of doing that.
Now, I'm
But
sorry, I keep interrupting you, but General Electric is not on the list.
no,
And I know that their division, what's their division called?
the Westinghouse, I'm not sure I'm not sure what their division is called, GE.
General Electric has a split off. I don't think it's one of these. It's not.
No, definitely not one of those. No, these are
Okay.
all startups.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Okay. So those 11, we'll go over some of those 11 later. Briefly, we're going to detour over to nuclear fusion.
Okay.
And I've, advised nuclear fusion companies. I've been to some of the conferences. So the big one making headlines is Helion Energy. I have interviewed the chief science officer and CEO, two guys involved with Helion Energy before. I haven't talked to them recently when they got the big money, which has been a few years now. So they got like $500 million from Microsoft with a commitment for like $2 billion if they hit certain goals. So they in the right here you see these stages. So they have these two guns that will so you make a plasma donut on each side, right? Magnetically, you have a bunch of science behind that, and then they accelerate them together at like supersonic speed, right? A million miles per hour, so beyond supersonic speed, right? So like 1,000 times faster than the speed of sound, slam together, and then they'll create fusion in the center, right? They've made six of these prototype reactors. They do one every 2 or 3 years. They had told me before that they would want to get to a commercial nuclear reactor in 2018, 2020. Didn't happen, missed the deadline. Now they're saying 2028, right? But now they have money. So, a lot of promises. And they have working equipment, right? But this had not generated electricity. Nothing in the nuclear fusion side, as much as I like it, has generated electricity, right? Or has generated electricity that could go to a light bulb. What they do is they make the box in their diagram say around where they're doing the action. And they're saying, I have a pellet of gas, and then I'm going to put, say, laser energy onto it, and I calculate how much laser energy went onto it, and then I calculate how much heat got generated when it came out. So the stuff in like Lawrence and Livermore, what they did, and they're getting like 5 times more energy or getting more energy now. Great scientific achievement, right? But that basically is enough power to run your hair dryer if you could capture the power, but it's like hair dryer heat in the middle of the reactor, right? But from the wall socket up into the equipment, and then the lasers, and then laying power onto it, I'm losing about 1,000 999% out of 1,000 of my energy is lost before I get there.
I
So I
see.
need to increase the power by 100 times or something like that in order, or make things more efficient to get less losses in order to get power out of this thing.
Okay, so
Right.
that's a lot.
Yeah.
Let me restate it so that we make sure not only I, but the audience maybe gets this. So with fusion, what you're trying to do is create the sun.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're bringing in an energy source, let's say
Mhm.
laser.
Mhm.
And the laser though has to be powered up, and
Yeah.
there's X amount of energy coming to the laser, and you're saying there's a lot of a drop, whatever energy source you're using between when you use that energy to the point where the laser beam is
Hits
pointing
the
at the
target.
helium or whatever the gas is, you're losing a tremendous amount of energy to get to that spot.
Right.
Now the laser hits the gas,
Yeah.
and right now at this particular one location, you're saying that they're getting five times,
Mhm.
5x the energy out the other side that they're putting in the front side.
Yeah.
But
But
that's
that's
after 1,000x drop.
as a result, that's true. That's right.
Okay, so then you've got to get a lot more than 5x just to get back to get back to equal.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
They're talking that, they could not lose 1,000 times. Maybe they only lose like 98% or like 95%. And
Okay.
then they would only need to get 20 times or something like that to generate power,
Right.
right? So there's a bunch of other things that they can do there. But for nuclear fission, one, everyone knows we made nuclear bombs back in 1945.
Right.
Then we later made fusion bombs, but we needed a fission bomb first. A fission bomb that compressed things that generated off the fusion bomb, right? So fusion energy reactors, first one like 1953. Why was it so easy to do that, where we were lighting up light bulbs in a whole town within months of doing that first power generation? The reason is that if I pile up enough uranium, I'm ready to go,
I see.
right? Versus the sun thing, at the during the conditions of the sun on Earth, harder,
Harder.
right?
Yeah.
Than just piling up uranium,
I see. I
right?
see.
So that's how come, 16% of electricity was generated by nuclear fission
Okay.
because it was really easy to do. I could just make something kind of like a coal plant operated by people who used to work at coal plants in the 1950s and 60s, right? And it was fine. And you only had, out of hundreds of cases, the three named incidents, and
Right.
of which only one involved death from the nuclear reactor. That was
Right.
Chernobyl,
Right.
right? And there it was an incredibly dangerous Soviet design, right? 3 Mile Island did not kill anyone.
Right.
And the Fukushima, um, well, maybe they had one death from that one, but basically that was from the tsunami that hit, not
Right.
necessarily
Right.
from
Right. Right.
from the and also from the evacuation stuff, not from the reactor itself. Anyway, so that's some stuff around the safety and the difference between fusion and fission.
Right.
So now we'll go back, unless you have any other
Okay,
questions.
so now let me set up the fission side again
Yeah.
because I also have two questions on that. So, well, it's one question with two parts.
Mhm.
Russia is making all kinds of generation three and generation four plants right now,
Mhm.
and Russia is also making SMRs right now. If
Time
did I
there.
say Russia? I meant China.
China.
China,
Yeah.
China,
Yeah.
China, China.
Yeah.
China's making these nuclear reactors. China's making the SMRs.
Mm.
They're making them at scale. Why are we not able? And I think you've told me that that the United States came up with these designs that China is using to do this. Why would it take more than a weekend for us to just copy their tech and start doing this ourselves?
Okay, so first, the most of the reactors being made are the Generation 3
Okay,
reactors, right? Um, so they Westinghouse worked with them and they, did the designs and they localized supply chain over the course of decades. So basically, the United States built all their reactors and then late 1970s hits high interest rates. High interest rates are really bad for nuclear because you can like front loading
yeah,
all of the costs. You have very low fuel costs, versus high fuel costs for natural gas and coal, right? So the US built all those, got over 100, and then chose to stop. Two or three reactors after that over 4 decades, almost nothing, right? And then France took up the baton, built about 55 reactors, got to 80% of electricity from nuclear, again using the Gen 3 reactors, standardized versions, did it at relatively low cost, and then had a great success there. And then China, then in the 2000s, started making a lot of reactors. Still, I think only just past France in terms of number of reactors. That took like 2 decades, right? Um, so China actually didn't build them per se faster than France
I
did,
see. Mhm.
right? Um, and so China needs a lot of power, right? So they've now have twice the amount of electricity that the US has. And so, from, really from the 2000s to now, 25 years,
Right,
a lot of power was built,
right.
and they did a lot for um, the nuclear fission plants. They have about 40, 50 under construction one time. They complete about 8 to 10 a year because it takes about 5 years. They just, it used to take us 5 years to build reactors under ideal conditions. Same thing for France. It's just that the US chose to add a bunch of regulations that ended up making it take 20 years. And they also like let their supply chain go to crap. And so then that was a huge problem. So China was doing it all. They had made some Gen 4 reactors. A pebble bed reactor was made, 200 megawatts. It's only like a dual reactor in one location. They're talking
Mhm,
about doing more with it, but they
mhm.
have not done it yet.
Okay,
They've done a molten salt test reactor, 2 megawatts, sim thermal, not generating electricity, similar to what the United States did back in the 1960s, right? So China redid that, right? But again, if they have plans to get that to a molten salt reactor, just like these other companies that we're talking to, some of them doing that now, but they have not made that commercial, right?
okay. And then part B of my question, we have submarines all over the world that have nuclear reactors providing all of their energy. They go underwater for months at a time. So they're working quite well. Why isn't it possible to take whatever we're doing with the nuclear submarines and immediately start doing something with nuclear?
Um, so the nuclear submarine reactors, the nuclear navy actually, Admiral was it Nimitz or Rickhoven, one of those two, took the submarine and the aircraft carrier reactors, and then made a bigger version that what became the Generation 2, Generation 3 reactors, right? So we actually are using the same kind of technology for that. But the submarine reactor might be only 1,000, 2,000 tons, right? Which is far smaller than the reactor, which you see
Yeah,
the big size, right? So why is it so much bigger versus that? It's because the submarine reactor is using about 60%, 80% enriched uranium versus 10, 20% for the commercial reactors,
so the
right?
input cost is too high on those reactors. Is that what the problem is?
Right. You'd have to get the enrichment far cheaper. But the other thing is that I don't want a bunch of 60%, 80% enriched uranium
Yeah,
floating
yeah,
around.
just laying around.
Right, because I'm within a smidge
Yeah,
of getting a nuclear
right,
bomb, which is
right,
what
right.
the whole thing with Iran
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah, yeah,
earlier this year, right? Where we said, okay, you got a bunch of 60% enriched uranium. I got to hit you with bunker busters, right? Because you're not a nice country
yeah,
and we
right,
don't want you to do that, right?
right.
So that's why we can't have the um, military grade uranium and small nuclear reactors is because we don't want the proliferation problem
Right,
of
right.
military grade uranium.
I got it. All right,
So
good.
not
All
just the
right.
cost, but also the fact that you're
Yes,
within this much of getting
yes,
your nuclear
yes.
bomb. Okay.
All right, okay. I'll let you go back to your slides now. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so this was the Helion thing.
Right.
Good luck to them. Maybe they can hit their 2020 target. But they have several miracles that must occur between here and there.
And obviously, if they do, if they get all their miracles done, this would be massive.
Right, right.
Yes.
But they're very secretive about it. Like I'm no longer talking to them after they got their money. I'm sure
Ah,
I don't think there's anything wrong with them. But basically, their seventh generation reactor is the one where they supposedly get a bit of net power, right?
okay.
Start generating a bit of electricity, which again, for the 70 years that we've had nuclear fission generating power, nuclear fusion has not lit up one light bulb,
Right, right.
right? So they're saying maybe this version 7 that they're completing now, maybe that will generate some power. And then
Okay.
2 years after that, then they say, well, then we'll get 50 megawatts out of this thing. And it's all going to work great. And also we'll generate helium-3 because there's different ways you can put different molecules together. You can have like deuterium, tritium, which is different from the hydrogen, extra protons and stuff like that. Um, Tritium doesn't exist in the world naturally. You have to make it from the Canadian versions of the nuclear fission reactor. You can generate some tritium, and we have very little of it, enough to generate power for a 1 gigawatt reactor for a year. So not in a whole industry where you're generating, 100
Yeah,
gigawatts, something like that,
yeah,
and the whole world generates about like I think close to 400 gigawatts of
right,
nuclear
right.
power. Um, so you then have to generate the tritium by yourself. Helium-3, even more rare, have not generated much of it. They say they will generate their own helium-3. So I'm going to generate power. I'm going to generate helium-3. It's all going to be low cost. A bunch of things which none of that has been proven, but they got, Microsoft to pony up, you know, 500 million and then 2 billion if they can make it all work.
Right.
So good luck to them, but it's like several miracles must occur which have not occurred before.
Okay.
And I can go through that with the other nuclear fusion company. But we'll go back to nuclear fission, which is more near term.
Sure.
Uh, okay, so let's go with that. So deep fission is one of them. Deep fission wants to make regular pressure water reactors, right? So taking existing technology like the Gen 3, make
Hmm.
it a bit smaller, right? Which is, we know we can do that. Not that big a deal. And then stick it down really deep holes, about a mile deep.
Hmm.
And then each one will generate about 15 megawatts each hole. And then you make 10 of them, you have 150 megawatts. You make 100 of them, you get 1.5 gigawatts, right?
Hmm.
So you're sticking regular reactors, small ones. I don't have to make the containment dome because I'm sticking it deep in the ground,
I see.
right? So that's a way to do it. And they have a agreement where a company that can make AI data centers, I think called Endeavor, has said, "Hey, you make that power, we'll buy it from you,"
Okay.
right? So they are now also the DOE program to get first criticality and stuff. But then, when will they actually get to, their other reactor? Last Energy, looking at a 20 megawatt reactor, they made a mock-up. So then there's a big physical, you can see the ladder down there. So this is about, I don't know, 3, 4 stories tall. You get the ladder over here. So they
Okay.
built this thing, which is a mock-up of what they want to do for it. But it does not actually generate power.
I see.
It just looks like the stuff all around it that would do it, right? And again, they got some funding, VC funding, and then they say we're going to make, here's what the rendering of what this all look like, right? Okay.
Right.
Oaklo Energy, they are publicly traded, worth a few $1 billion on there. They have their site approved for that. They're using, again, more proven technology. They say they want to make a 75 megawatt reactor, fast reactors, which is, there have been a bunch of fast reactors. Normally, the pressure water, boiler water reactors do not use fast neutrons. These guys are using fast neutrons, which has been done. Russia's done it more. They also work with China to make a few of these fast reactors. You make them a lot more when you want to generate bomb material,
Hmm.
right? But they also do it in a commercial form. So it's not like, lead molten. It's more difficult than doing the pressure water, boiler water reactors. But it's not, again, it has been done. So it's not like it has been done. It's a question of how cost effective can you do it? Is your way going to be more cost effective? Isn't the question of can it be done? It can be done. Just a question of cost.
And Oklo Energy, as you mentioned, is publicly traded,
Mhm.
and so I suppose partly because of that, but we do hear more about Oklo than you do some of these other some of these other names.
Right, right. Publicly traded, I think 4.5 billion, $5 billion valuation, even though no actual working reactors.
Right, right,
But it's an easier sell. I'm going to do something that's already been done. I'm
right,
just going to do it cheaper.
right.
Right? So now we're going to go over to a bunch of other ones, a mix of the ones that are in the program or not in the program. So the criticality thing is, again, just making a small reactor that works. So
Okay,
Natura Resources is doing a molten salt reactor, which two have already been built, right? The one by the uh, U.S. Research Lab in the 1960s, operated for a few years,
okay,
and then the China one. So no one questions, you know, technicality. Can you do molten salt? It's been done, right?
okay,
But you haven't operated commercially. They are going to make a reactor in Abilene University. They already have the permit, which is a big deal, getting the permit to do it. But it's a permit for a lab reactor there. And they have the building and going to do it quickly. So they've gone through this. If you're making a lab reactor, you can get to this 2 megawatt thing quicker,
Okay.
right? So it's already approved to do that, and they think they can do it by next year,
Okay.
2026. So that means like from nothing to something you can
Right.
make a molten salt. Molten salt is like melted metal,
Okay.
right? Versus the the rods that are the traditional fuel, right?
Right.
So the good thing about molten stuff is that it's melted iron, melted whatever, mixed in with the uranium, that if I have a plug at the bottom of my container, right? I can design that to melt at, say, 800 degrees Celsius, right? I want to operate my reactor at 700 degrees. And then if I go 100 degrees over, this thing, this alloy will melt.
Hmm.
And then everything dumps out. It'll go into a big wide pan. And because it's spread out, it cannot
Continue.
do have a out of control reaction,
Right.
right? So by physics, there's no like someone must push a button, someone must start some other thing to start cooling it. Physics, it
Yeah.
just dumps out. So that's what they call a walk-away safe reactor.
Got it.
Whereas like physics will not allow this thing to overheat,
Right.
right? So Kairos is doing a fluoride salt-cooled high temperature reactor. They also got a lot of DOE money for this thing. Again, it's I think they're not doing the pilot program because they have more DOE money, more support. So it's like, why do I need to get this special permit running thing around when I already got my permits,
Got it.
right? And they got like a bunch of money from DOE. The other guys don't get money from DOE. They just have a DOE rubber stamp that they're doing well. Radiant is part of that program, high temperature reactor. Better to go to high temperature because it's more efficient. Like because I'm managing heat, instead of operating at 300 degrees Celsius, I would go up to 700. I go from like 30, 32% efficiency up to 45,
Wow.
right? And you can even get up to maybe 50 if you do things right. Um, so they're working with Idle Lab. They're talking about commercial in 2028. Um, a lot of these guys are now pretty confident they can do things pretty quickly, 2028, 2030. Um, a lot of you guys have missed targets. Other companies have missed targets before, right? Last Energy says they can do something pretty quick. They're doing a pressurized water microreactor. So just taking the existing reactor and shrinking it down.
Okay.
One thing about the small modular reactor, which basically means 300 megawatts or less.
Okay.
A regular big reactor, traditional reactor, Gen 3, in the range of like 800 to 1.2, 800 megawatts to 1.2, 1.4 gigawatts,
Right.
right? So why go to smaller reactors? It's because the big reactors that were made in the United States and in Europe, the Westinghouse, APR, whatever reactor, end up taking close to 20 years and cost around $20 billion,
Okay.
right? So then they say, oh, holy crap, that's even for us utility, that's a lot of money, right? So one, we want to get that down to 10 years or 8 years, something like that, or ideally 5 years, which Korea and China can do. But we have this regulatory problem. But then the $20 billion, that's a huge problem too. So if I make it 4 times smaller, then I can only need 3 billion, $5 billion.
Hmm.
China only needs $4 billion for a full-size reactor,
Wow.
right? So, and Korea can do that too, right? So I don't have to shrink if I'm not regulatory tripling my thing, slowing it all down,
Got it.
right? Because they would do a lot of moving the goalposts, changing things. So Trump deregulating, meaning I'm not working against you, not constantly moving the goalposts on you, not constantly saying you need to do other things in order to make things safer or something, right? So that's why the small modular reactor. The other thing would be that if I'm doing something small and modular, I can maybe do it like I'm making a, a passenger jet plane or a
Hmm.
turbine.
Hmm.
The complexity, the size is somewhat comparable on some of these key components, right? So in theory, you can make a factory and that could pump out 1,050 megawatt reactors, right? But again, no one's done that. This is a theory,
Right. Right.
right?
Right. Except again, in China.
No, China hasn't done it.
Oh,
China
they
has
haven't
not
done
made
it.
factories where they're mass producing the reactors.
I
They've
see.
said that they can do that,
I
but they
see.
have not done it.
I see.
Their pebble bed reactor, where I'm making fuel shaped like a baseball, and I got a tiny bit inside, I'm making hundreds of thousands of these fuel things, but I only got one.
Oh,
I had a lab version and then one commercial version of that reactor.
oh,
And
oh,
that reactor was, 5, 8 years late, right? So they have that, and they say they're going to do this, in six pack and do whatever. They have not scaled that. None of their Gen 4 reactors have scaled, right? But they've proven it. They got to commercial,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they have not scaled it. None of the non-Gen 3 reactors have scaled.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay.
None of them.
Okay. So, but ultimately, I mean, everybody's very, very excited, or everybody that I read about is very excited about the SMRs because of the ability to easily distribute them, because of the, like you say, you wouldn't have to get an approval for every single reactor. Once you've got the design, you just start popping them out
In theory,
in theory. Right.
and if the regulatory, they said they're going to go that way, and they're making moves that way, but they have not done that yet.
Right.
And they have not started making a bunch,
Yeah.
right? They'll say, I'm going to make a bunch,
Yeah.
right? But I've been following this for 20 years.
Right.
They've been saying they're going to make a bunch, you know, past 15 years. Like China said, hey, we're going to make this first pebble bear reactor. They're going to make a bunch more. I wrote about that 10 years ago, and it had not happened.
Yeah.
They finished the one. I'm very happy they finished the one,
Right.
but they did not start mass producing them, right?
Okay.
So as of yet, all of the small modular reactors are not mass produced at
Got it. Got
scale,
it.
right? Okay, so then Oklo is down there as well. Okay, TerraPower, that was one that's related to Bill Gates, working with Southern Power Utility. They're talking about new types of reactors. They originally were talking about doing that in China, but then, geopolitics and stuff like that, they stopped doing that and they're now doing that in the United States. They plan to go critical in 2026. This is one of those ones like, hey, Bill Gates, you got all that money. He did not step up and
Yeah.
say, here's $10 billion, let's make this thing happen, $20 billion. I'm going to like, knock down the barriers and make these things happen. He was saying, I put my name behind it, I put some significant amount of money behind it, but I'm still depending upon DOE, other people to put in the money. He did not say, I'm taking it upon myself and whatever's going to happen is going to happen.
And Brian, is this the one that would be using spent rods that are already in existence to do it? Or is this, because I thought one of his projects was,
Yeah, if it's a fast reactor, this is fast. That means you can take spent fuel. Any fast reactor with the right design can take spent fuel. Take 238, which is
right,
most of what is spent fuel, 90%, 98% by weight of
mhm,
your waste is unburned 238.
right,
And then if I have a fast reactor, I can take that and then use it as fuel.
okay.
So any fast reactor
Mhm,
can
mhm.
in theory do that, although some do it better than others. Depends on your design. Westinghouse has talked about a heat pipe microreactor. So it's more about how efficiently they move things around. It's a small reactor. They've talked about it, but they did not step up to build it. They want other people to give them the money to make that happen. Um, so they're not moving forward. Again, it's an old style company not taking risks. So
Okay.
they have made their designs were the ones that were predominantly in the old style reactors, the Gen 3s, but they have not taken their new design and come and said, okay, here it is, I'm gonna make it work. I got all this money or whatever.
Right.
They've gone bankrupt a few times to transfer around between Japan and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Terrestrial Energy had the molten salt reactor. Talk about cogeneration. They're going to do it up in Canada, other places. NuScale Power does a small version of a regular reactor. The problem for them was that, the whole point was to make the low cost, right? I'm going to make it much smaller, but then I'm going to scale down the cost, right? The previous problem was that, like if I make it smaller, all of my control systems, my control rooms, all that cost stay the same.
Yeah.
So then, the end up being 2 or 3 times more expensive. But with new computers and stuff, I could do a 6 pack, 12 pack of smaller reactors. Then the scaling cost doesn't have a big problem. When they actually tried to get ahead and make their small reactor, they were talking about doing a 70 megawatt one, so about 10 to 15 times smaller than a regular reactor.
Mhm, mhm.
And they were talking about the costs blew up to like 3.4 billion dollars,
Mm,
right? Which might kind of work if you were doing a 300, 400 megawatt reactor, but not for a 77 megawatt
right.
reactor,
Right.
right? It's
Right.
still 5 times too expensive. So then people pulled out. So then, can they even get it going if they're saying, okay, if we actually try and do this, our costs don't really go better. And again, in China, in Korea, I can make a full 1 gigawatt reactor,
Right.
1,000 megawatts
Right.
for the same price. So why am I making something for 77 megawatts?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so why aren't we uh, hiring a Korean company to come over and make these in the United States?
I'm going to talk about that in
Okay,
the next
all right,
slide.
okay, okay,
Right. So BWX reactor, they're doing transportable reactors. There's other companies working transport reactors. Nano Nuclear, publicly traded company. I've talked to them. I did a video about them. They have a few different technologies on mobile reactors. And again, before the AI data center solution, you'd want one that can mass produce them.
okay.
So then the various companies would have plans to do that, but none has done it as of yet. Okay, so I'm, full disclosure, I'm working with these two companies, trying to help get them some funding. Thorcon and Copenhagen Atomics, both working on the molten salt reactor technology. Thorcon's working on a 500 megawatt reactor. They're been in talks to do that in Indonesia as their first site. They got a site approval. Um, First part of it, like multi-stage approvals, first step of whatever to get the full thing. And they want to build them in shipyards. So shipyards can make 100 large ships, which
Mhm.
also, and the ships have turbines, which is like the turbine, the plumbing of the ship is similar to 80% plus of what a nuclear reactor is,
Wow.
right? Because you do the turbines and you do things. So the difference is in the nuclear part versus a natural gas or a coal burning part
Uh-huh.
of it, or oil burning part. And yeah, it's about Korea. They are in discussions with Korea, the shipyard, and also KEPCO, the nuclear production firm, right?
Okay.
So they're so they're doing that kind of work to get the efficiency of Korea for a regular reactor, something that's proven, where hey, we made other reactors for Korea, and we have this on time, very cost effective way to do it. And if I make it at shipyards, I can then float the reactor over to wherever I want it to go,
Hmm.
right? I
Hmm.
can make it one place and then I can then bring it over to the United States or wherever,
Right,
right?
right,
So by making it at the Korean shipyard, I
right,
can then send
right.
it wherever I want to go.
Got it.
Copenhagen Atomics also doing molten salt. They're doing that. They want to try and get by 2028. They make components of it. So this is the Thorcon version. Again, looks kind of like a ship. The guys who are running this company, the two brothers, they made 4 large ships or something like that were twice the size of the planned reactor. And you can see the generators and stuff all looks like a regular ship,
Mhm.
right? Copenhagen Atomics, they want to do that mass production of things, kind of like that whole aircraft turbine
Okay.
situation, right? And that basically is it.
All right. So that raises only one last question because we're almost up to an hour here. Um, what happens to the rest of the energy develop? In other words, what happens to oil, gas, solar, wind, and everybody else if we get a successful SMR or even start being able to build these plants like China has in 4 or 5, or Korea has in 4 or 5 years? Will these are my understanding is that while the upfront cost might be high, the running cost on these is so low, the footprint is small, et cetera, that over time, these make a lot better sense than even solar. So would this kind of obliterate all other energy
No,
approaches? No. Okay.
no. So as I said, we're going to scale up where we're going to need 150 gigawatts a year,
Yeah.
right? And that could even scale up more, right?
Mhm.
So right now, China completing 10 nuclear reactors a year. Wow, so that's 10 gigawatts, right?
Okay.
So even if we double up China, right, which China hasn't been able to do for decades, um, then we're looking at less than 7% of the energy we may start needing, right? So everything is behind on energy for AI data centers,
Got
right?
it.
We need so much more power. We have to go from a standstill. And United States, Europe, Japan, for all energy has been a standstill. We've only just been replacing some stuff that broke. We weren't adding new stuff. Only China, India, some other countries were adding power. But now everyone has to start adding power again. So getting this to scale, if we get to, okay, now I'm making 200, 300 gigawatts per year, 30 times more than China
Right.
is. Okay, now we can talk about maybe we're going to play something else, right? Now we can say, okay, now I'm going to go back and replace those coal and natural gas things, right? Because now I got extra stuff and I can start replacing the old things.
Right.
I can handle
Right.
all the new plus extra to replace the old. And then, but rather right now we're behind. We're going to be behind for at least 20 years,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And so then behind for 20 years, we'll make anything we can, natural gas, nuclear, solar, batteries, whatever can start generating some power, we're going to do that. And then maybe in 20 years, if this works out, then we're going to. The other thing is that if I'm going to be adding 200, 300 gigawatts per year, which is the amount of power practically that we have for all nuclear reactors built over decades. All the reactors built in the United States, all the reactors built in China, all the reactors built in France, and we do that in 1 year. Not over 40 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades, over 1 year, right?
Right.
So the scale of what we have to do is so much more, but it's going to be so much more energy intensive.
Yeah.
Again, it's like we're doing a second major industrial revolution,
Right.
where we went from nothing, burning whale oil for light, kerosene, to the entire coal, oil, and gas industry, right? So that's what we have to do here. And we'll have to do stuff like we have about like 5 million, 10 million tons of uranium reserves on land. We'll have to scale that up and then use all that up quickly. And then we'll need to tap into the 3 billion tons of uranium in the ocean, right? So we have enough uranium, particularly if we can use 238, right? Then that gives us like 20 times more uranium because we not just 235, but also 238, right? Then we have 20 times more. So we can get to 100 times more by using the stuff in the ocean, 20 times more by using all the 238. We can then have 10 times as much power and still be okay. But that takes a long time to go from 60,000 tons of uranium a year now, 100,000 or something.
Right. Right. Okay. And all right. So then just a couple of thoughts from my side of these, because we commonly run these shows on both of our channels. On my side, Phil Beisel. I'm not sure whether this would have been Friday night or Saturday morning. You can go back and find it. Phil and I did a very long and detailed analysis like this on the whole AI 6 chip. We talked about the 4 and the 5 also, but more of this AI 6, what that really means, and also kind of why we need all this energy. It kind of dovetails, the two things kind of dovetail together. I'm going to recommend you go and check that out if you like this kind of in-depth analysis of what's going on. All of it relating, of course, to Tesla and to XAI as well in terms of this future that we're all building together.
Okay, sounds good. So
All right.
join us for next time. Like and subscribe, please. Thank you.